So I have a question for you, Julio.
Okay, let's go.
So the candidate says, my main obstacle during preparation is when to start preparation. I'm hesitant to start before getting an invite for an interview because all that effort will go to waste if I don't. So my current approach is to only start preparing when I get invited to an interview. What's your advice? So it's kind of the opposite of the last question, isn't it?
Yeah. So this person doesn't want their time to go to waste.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair concern. I wouldn't want to study for a test for a discipline that I'm not yet taking.
Right.
In this specific case, though, this is not a university discipline or test. So here's my way of thinking about it. This is basically risk-reward calculation. You're going to be spending some time preparing, and then when you get your interviews, you're going to be competing with a lot of smart people who also had to make this decision. Some of them are going to decide not to prepare before. Some of them are going to decide to prepare before.
So people have gone through the process before, so they have already done a full preparation round before.
Many people have gone through the process before, have gotten rejected and have tried again, and then gotten in. So yeah, there's many people who are also in that situation. So it ends up being a risk-reward calculation, and it is for something that's a little bit bigger, maybe a lot bigger than passing or failing a single test, because you're joining a career that's theoretically going to help you a lot.
Yeah.
Now, this is a simple answer, but there's a nuance to it that I think is more important, and that is your time really going to waste? Mm-hmm. Now, take into account that we help people prepare for case interviews. So obviously our bias is towards preparing.
We're very biased.
We're very biased, but still.
But we also have a lot of experience under our belts, right? We've seen a lot.
We've seen a lot, and we've seen something surprising a lot. There's even an example for this that I didn't tell you about before. Just happened yesterday. So what we've seen a lot is people report to us that they will improve at work while preparing for their case interviews.
Yeah,
so
I hear that a lot.
They do. I've heard people say that they started running more efficient meetings. I've heard people say, I've heard someone say that they did better in their final exams in their medicine course.
I read that review a couple days ago. Yeah.
Because they used our preparation methods, frameworks, because I guess they treated their final exams preparation like a consultant would treat a project.
Can I give some context on that?
Yeah, sure.
So when you're in medical school, you're going to specialize. You have these interviews, and basically it's a case study as well, right?
Yeah.
Oftentimes, I guess that's what happened to this person. So the senior doctor, I don't know how they call it, like the attending doctor, they give you a case and they're like, how would you solve this?
Yeah.
Right? And obviously business frameworks, business concepts, like they have no place there. Mm-hmm. But if you're able to structure your hypothesis and create a test for each one, and my parents are doctors, yours are too, so we kind of know what we're talking about. Like if you're able to structure, like what are the hypotheses for this, for the symptoms, and what is the different priority levels, and what are the tests, and how hard is it to run the tests? Mm-hmm. You can probably find the most efficient path for the diagnosis, right?
Yeah.
And in a way that maybe doctors who know a lot of medicine but haven't been trained in structured thinking, they can't do it as efficiently. Like they'll say, oh, the first thing I do is this. Okay, now the results are this. What would you do now? Oh, now I think this. So it's more unstructured.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my guess on what went right for this person.
Yeah, could be.
Just to give some context to the audience on how case interviews may help a medical doctor, right?
Yeah. Sure. There are many ways that they could help, I guess.
Yeah.
But another thing that happened to me that was interesting, I was telling a friend that we were going to come here to record podcasts, so I wouldn't be able to go out with him.
Yeah.
And he told me that he's a manager in the industry, in a random company. And he tells everyone that starts working with him, the analysts, to go through the analytics parts of our free course.
Cool.
So that they are more ready to make models for him. and discuss the models beforehand. I went out with this friend for lunch maybe 5 years ago, and I told him about our approach to analytics. And his eyes widened, and he told me, this would be amazing for me. Like, the way I do models would completely change.
Well, why is that? Like, did he go into detail?
Yeah, because the first thing that he would do was open Excel and start plugging in formulas, and then get confused and lost by the middle. And then he would have to go back and redo everything. And it was kind of a test approach. You know, he would test something, it wouldn't work. He would test something, it wouldn't work.
Very iterative.
Yeah. And then with that, I was explaining to him how before you do anything, you create a structure and you talk about that structure, that method, with someone else. In case interview is an interviewer.
Right.
But it could be with his boss who asked him to do the analysis.
Before even opening Excel.
Right when you get the analysis, right? His boss would tell him, do this, and he would create a plan and discuss it.
Right.
And that's why he said it would change everything, because it would save him so much time.
Yeah.
But then we never talked about this again.
Okay.
And now, yesterday we were talking, and I told him about this, and he was like, yeah, that time you told me that one thing about analysis, and now I tell everyone to go through your free course before they start working with me.
Interesting.
Yeah. So there are X interview benefits.
Yeah, for sure.
So your time is not really going to waste. You're actually learning valuable skills that you're going to use whichever job you get, and maybe even whichever interview. I wouldn't bet in interviews, but it's definitely something that's useful on the job.
Yeah. Okay, but maybe this person doesn't really care. They just want to pass the interview and deal with professional development later.
Yeah.
Let's assume that for now, because I agree with you, but let's say that they don't really care about all that. They just want a good job. Should they still wait for getting a first round invitation before preparing or not?
Again, it's a risk-reward calculation. It really depends on how much that time is worth to that person and how much getting the job is worth to them.
Right.
But I personally would still start preparing before. If I was going to forget everything that I learned in preparation afterwards, I would still start preparing before, mostly because you're competing with really high-quality candidates.
Yeah.
So your chances are slim.
Before.
Yeah, who were preparing before. Many who have prepared for a year because they had tried in the previous year.
Yeah.
So your chances are really slim if you wait until you only have 2 weeks.
Yeah, I have a few heuristics for this.
What are they?
So one is, what are your chances on getting the invitation? For example, if you're in a top MBA program, you're very likely to get an invitation to interview with some firms.
Yeah.
So might as well start preparing earlier, because, otherwise then you're actually wasting time, because you knew with 90% certainty that you'd get an invitation.
Yeah.
And now you're putting yourself in a situation where you're less likely to get the job because you haven't prepared earlier. So that's one. The other one is, if you don't get the invitation, will you try again in the future?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Or if you don't pass the interview, are you likely to try again and apply again in the future? If you are, might as well start preparing now, because if you really want the job, if that's kind of like your dream career, then you're going to try again. And if you're going to try again, prepare as early as possible.
Yeah.
And the third one is, this is less a heuristic and more like a logical analysis of the situation. So if you think there's 100% of candidates, how many of them start preparing after they get an invitation? Mm-hmm. It's probably 50% of them.
Okay.
Right? The other 50 start preparing earlier. Mm-hmm. And then you have different segments again. You have how many people start preparing a year in advance? Maybe 2 or 3% of people. 6 months in advance, maybe 10, 15% of people, and so on. So if you look at it this way, you're saying, very few people start preparing months in advance.
Yeah.
But then if you see what are the offer rates at these firms, and it's usually 3 to 5%, maybe if you only consider first round invitees, it's more like 5 to 10%, but it's still low.
Yeah.
So who are these people? Who are these 10% of people who are invited to a first round and will get an offer? It probably leans more towards those who have more preparation. So if you get a share of the people who got the offer, a lot of people started preparing earlier.
Yeah.
So that's one way of looking at it. Because if you look at your colleagues, like if at your fellow students or other people who are going through the process with you, you have a false sense of security that, oh, a lot of people haven't started preparing yet, so I'm probably fine, right? Well, not really, because they're probably not going to get offers either.
Yeah, you're looking at the candidate pool, not the offer pool, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And another thing that I'd add is which one's more costly for you? Is it the effort of preparing, which has positive externalities in your career, in other types of job interviews, if you're going to interview with ex-consultants in a different firm, or if you're going to interview for a PM role at a tech company, these skills are going to help you a lot, but it has some effort. So which one's more costly? Is it the effort? Or if you start preparing after you get the invitation, you're going to get a lot of stress.
Yeah.
Because you'll be like very tight on time. So which one's more costly? Is it the effort or the stress? Because you can't avoid both, really.
Yeah.
Right? So for me, it's the effort, but everyone has their own preferences, and I'm not here to judge anyone, but that's how I think about this.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.